Welcome back to When Harry Met Board Games, where we feed our people with relatable content, and our victory condition is your satisfaction. I'm Harry, and today I'm going to be playing through and reviewing this game right here, Travelers of Tryphosa. Full disclaimer, this is a paid review. If you are interested in learning more about the Kickstarter campaign and other information, check in the description down below for a link. So this is what the game looks like set up. First of all, we have the board here, which is basically a map of the lands of Tryphosa with all their different cities and locations, the different terrain types. We take these campsite tokens and we randomly shuffle them and place them face down on their corresponding campsite images that are found throughout the board. We shuffle all the decks of cards. We have the abilities deck, the items deck, the creatures deck, and the quest deck, and we place them in their corresponding spots. We also set aside these purple bordered secondary quest cards. These are quests that are either continuations of previous quests or maybe multi-part quests that players will partake in. So we set them aside so that when players have to locate them, they're easily found. We have a bunch of different tokens on the game. We have coins, we have these tokens here that will be used to level up characters, and we have damage and wound tokens that are set aside right there. This is a 2 to 6 player game, but it really only has 2 to 3 sides, or teams or parties if you will. So multiple players can form a band or a team to compete against a second and even a third party. All parties must have an equal amount of characters. There's a way of playing this game solo or with just one team or one party, and the rulebook does specify how to do so. For the purposes of this video, I will be simulating a 2-party or 2-team experience with 2 characters apiece on each party. Each party is going to choose their color, and they're going to gather the corresponding dice, their corresponding meeple, and their corresponding scoring pawn of that color. So let's check out the blue party's characters here. First of all, we have Evander Windari, who's an avian explorer. We have Udo Nikias, who's a human cleric. And each of these characters comes with their oversized character card and a smaller card, and they all serve their particular purposes. The larger card has a backstory as far as the character is concerned, and it has their stats on the back in each of 6 different attributes. It also tells their special starting abilities that they might have and their attack abilities that they start the game with, and their starting coin. The smaller card tells you the character's life, how much damage they must sustain before they are knocked out. And in this case, Udo has a life of 8. And it also in the back gives you an optional starting quest that players can participate so that they have something to aim for from the very beginning of the game. So let me just read here Evander Windari's backstory just to give you guys an example. It says, Evander is a member of the Windari royal family and is known, even among his kind, for his expert acrobatic flying skills. He maintains a sophisticated air and is a tiny bit arrogant. Just a bit, but does not mind mingling with commoners. He travels to explore and discover new places and bring backstories and maps to his people. Here's a quote. I tire of these established roads and paths. Show me new places and take me to an uncharted land. Novelty is the spice of life. Each party also has to choose one of their characters' starting quests on the back of the card here to be the starting location and the opening quest for their team. So we're going to start here with Evander's quest, which is called Loyalty of the Lowly. It says, Evander, the eldest member of the High Council, addresses you in the middle of a boring meeting. It is time for you to fulfill your princely duty of garnishing loyalty of the lowly people of our realm. I have heard the peasants of Brenton are dwindling in their submissiveness. Go and remind them of our benevolence. So our party is going to begin the game in Windar, which is right here on the northmost spot on the board. And to complete this quest, we need to travel to Brenton, which is westward over here. And we address the people, and therefore we fulfill this quest. And on the upper right here, we see the loot or the reward that we get for completing this quest. And there's actually 2 symbols here. It's the victory point symbol or the quest point symbol and the coin symbol. So what's going to happen is we're going to get coins equal to this number, which is 2, times the number of our parties. So since we have 2 characters in our party, we're going to get 4 coins. We're also going to do the same thing to the quest points. We're going to get 2 times the size of our party. So it's going to be 4 quest points if and when we accomplish this quest. The red party over here also has 2 characters that they start off with. They have Leona Logan, the Elf Ranger, and they have Grave Stoneheart, the Dwarf Craftsman. Again, these characters come with their oversized card and their smaller standard card. We're going to look at Leona here and see her backstory. It says, as a woodland elf, Leona navigates forests as swiftly as the wind. They tend to get along well with animals and can tame all kinds of beasts. They possess a strong moral compass and unfazed heart of courage in the face of trouble. They have become a traveler to provide aid anywhere in the world they find need. A minimalist, they travel light, carrying a sapling bow and not much else. Their words are few as their possessions. Therefore, we have a very short quote here. One day, I shall return to these woods. So this party is also going to choose a starting quest based on the backside of their character cards. And we're going to choose Graves' quest here, the Sword Collector, it says. You read a bulletin, seeking unique handcrafted swords from around the world. Due to my fear of sea travel, I may not leave the island. I will pay anyone who can deliver. Signed, Garthley. You have crafted many swords in your lifetime, mostly for war, but it would be nice to have someone just appreciate your work. Begin the game in Crystal City, which is right here on the southmost spot on the map. And to complete this, we need to travel to Piketown, which is right over here. So we're going to flip these cards over here and have the stats of our characters available. We're also going to gain the starting coin for each player. So Evander gets 4 coins. Yudo gets 4 coins. So we're going to start with 8 coins for this party here. And in this case, we have Leona Logan, who has 4 coins, and we have Grave Stoneheart, who has 6 coins, so they're going to get 10 coins to start the game. So we are going to begin the game. We're going to create the starting market here with different ability cards. We start with 3 ability cards that are available in market, as well as 3 item cards here that are available in market. And on the upper right-hand corner, we find their price in gold value. We're going to randomly choose a starting party and give them this orange starting player or starting team marker. And we'll choose the blue player here. So we're going to simulate the first round of play, starting with the blue party here. And on a team's turn, they have 2 choices as far as the type of actions they could take. They can either take a market action, but only if they're in a town at the moment, which currently this team is in the Windar town or city, so they can choose to take a market action. The second option a team has for their turn is to take a movement action. In this case, I am going to take a movement action and indicate how it works. So first of all, a team has 3 basic moves where they can move anywhere respecting different terrain rules. For example, you cannot traverse mountains, and to cross waters, you either need a sea ability or you need to pay the price for the different ports that we find along the map. Other than that, we have 3 free movement points that we could always utilize to move from hex to hex. On top of that, we also add the highest agility stat of any character in our party. So in this case, Evander has an agility of 3. Therefore, we have 3 additional movement points. And finally, you can make 3 path movements. And the paths are indicated along the map by these white dotted lines here. And basically, the paths represent chartered territory or pathways that are easy to access and easy for people to maneuver through. So we're going to take our movement and we're trying to get to Brenton because remember, our opening quest is Evander's quest here, which we need to get to the city of Brenton in order to address the people and remind them of their of the benevolence of the Windari. So we're going to use 3 movement points. We're going to use 3 regular movement points. 1, 2, and 3. Then I'm going to use 3 more movement points because of Evander's agility. And it happens to be on a pathway. 1, 2, 3. And then I still have up to 3 more moves as long as they're on a pathway. And I will use them to get to Brenton. By the way, you can mix and match the way you choose. The pathway movement does not necessarily have to be at the end of your movement. So now that we're here in Brenton, we have successfully accomplished this quest here, which required us to travel from Windar and make it to Brenton to address the people. We'll collect its loot, which again, it's 2 coins times the size of the party. So we're going to gain 4 coins, and we'll also collect the victory points or the quest points, which is 2 times the size of the party. So 4 points. We'll advance this pawn here, 4 on the quest point track that goes along the edge of the board. And now this party is done with the end of their turn, and we're going to proceed to the red team's turn. And again, they are starting with Graves Quest, which requires them to travel from Crystal City to Pike Town. But before they're doing that, they're actually going to choose, instead of taking a movement action, they're going to choose the alternative, which is a market action. They are in a town, they're in Crystal City, therefore they have the option to shop. And now that they're here at market, they can do 3 things. They can buy an item or ability, they can sell an item for half of its gold value, and they can exchange a quest by discarding one of their current quests, placing it on the marketplace, and drawing from the top of the quest deck. And you can choose as many of these 3 options as you want. So now that we're here at market, we're going to do some shopping. So let's just see some of the options we have available to us. We have this Spell of Transport, which is a perishable item. That means you do not equip it and keep it long term. Instead, it's used once and it's exhausted. In this case, it will give us instant travel. We can instantly transport anywhere during the actions phase of your turn and then discard this. It does cost 8 coins, however, but it can be very helpful for timeliness as far as accomplishing certain quests. We also have this Ceremonial Dagger here, which is an equipable item, and it's a weapon. We will use our Dexterity attribute when we attack with this weapon. It is a melee weapon, which I'll explain more about attacking and combat later on. And it gives us +1 damage if the character who wields it has a strength of 2, an additional +1 once that character has a strength of 4, and an additional +1 if that character is at strength 6. So potentially 3 additional damage, because by default, damage is usually the lower dice out of the 2 dice you roll for attack. And again, I will explain how combat works later on. This card could potentially increase a character's success in combat. We have here this Samurai Armor, which is another equipable item. It gives us an armor of 3, so that means -3 damage to all attacks against you, but it also prevents the use of bows. So you want to make sure whichever character equips this probably is not a ranged character with the use of a bow. And we're going to check the abilities here. We have Swimming here, which is a travel ability. Strength is the relevant stat for this ability here. It says use with travel action to cross rivers. Before traveling, roll Strength to cross any rivers this round. The character with this ability aids the party to cross rivers. Because normally we have these rivers here, not to be confused with the larger bodies of water, the lakes, but these rivers here, normally you cannot cross them unless there's a bridge connecting the 2 sides of land. So this will basically be a cheat where players will be able to swim across all these different rivers. And again, it'll make travel much more efficient. We have here this Capture ability, which is an encounter ability. Strength is the relevant stat for this one. It says we can capture an animal to sell at market. However, it's going to be -3 to the roll if that character or that animal happens to be a hostile animal. As we'll see later on, some of these creatures are hostile, which makes them a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more complicated to deal with. When you encounter any animal creature, it says roll Strength to capture it. And again, -3 to roll if it's hostile. You discard the captured creature at any town to gain its full loot, quest points, and gold. Okay, so this gives us an alternative in combat. We don't necessarily need to defeat the creature. We can try to capture it first. And then we have here the Magic Field, which is a magic response. Intelligence is the relevant attribute. It says -1 damage to all attacks against entire party. We roll our intelligence to cast a magic field to your party, and for the rest of this combat, you get -1 damage to all attacks on your party's members. Effects may not be stacked by casting multiple times. You may discard magic armor to the marketplace to reduce the cost of this card by the cost of that card. So apparently there's another card out there called Magic Armor, which can make this card be discounted. So I'm actually going to choose to buy this Samurai Armor here, which is an equipable item and costs 8. However, Grave Stoneheart has this craftsman ability here, which says that whenever he buys equipable items, he buys them for 1 less gold than the stated value. So our party is only going to have to pay 7 for this armor here. And I am going to equip Grave with this because this is going to be -3 damage to all attacks, but it prevents the use of bows. And Leona Logan here uses a bow as her starting weapon. So Grave will be the one who wears this armor. And we immediately replenish the marketplace. And we drew this Orca Whistle here, which is an equipable item. And again, this allows for sea travel up to 6 spaces. You get to travel up to 6 hexes per round, or 8 if you have taming or riding as a starting ability, which some of these characters do. This is part of the Ranger set, so there is a little bit of set collection in this game. You pay -1 gold if you already have an item from the same set. So once a player has a Ranger set item, the next item that they buy from the Ranger set is going to be -1 gold. So now we are done with what's referred to as the action phase of the round, and we're going to proceed to the next phase, which is the event phase. And in turn order, each team is going to resolve their event phase. Now, if a party is on one of these campsite spots, what would happen during the event phase is you would flip over that campsite token, and depending on what you see on the other side, it will determine whether or not you will encounter a creature or gain a new quest card. However, because this party is not at a campsite, what happens instead is you roll a single die, and based on that roll, it determines what event you will encounter. And we rolled a 4. And for any roll from 1 through 4, the party will draw a card from the quest deck. If it would have been a 5 or a 6, we would have had an encounter with a creature. So we're going to draw the top card here. And we have Stardust Part 1. So this is a multi-part quest. And it tells us here that the loot is 2 per character in our party. It says, spew, boom. You see a flaming rock fall from the northern sky, striking the earth. To complete, travel to the mountain cluster just south of Windar and roll strength to climb up the meteorite site. You may keep rolling, but take 1 damage each time you fail. This is a chain quest. You can optionally take the secondary quest, Stardust Part 2, the next time you draw a quest. So that is cool. Now you could only have 3 ongoing or incomplete quests at a time. Once you get a 4th one, you will be obligated to forfeit one of your other quests. And you forfeit a quest by placing it in the market area and making it available for other players or yourself on a future turn to draw it. Now this party is going to resolve their event phase, and again, they are not in a campsite, so they will roll a single die. And they rolled a 5, and again, at a roll of a 5 or a 6, you have an encounter with a creature. So we're going to draw the top card here from the creature deck. And it's a Merp-Mellow, which is an animal. And it says here, if you destroy it, you take Merp Jerky from the item deck and reshuffle. So we would go through the item deck and find Merp Jerky. If another player already has that item, immediately heal the party to full health. So let's talk a little bit about the anatomy of the creature card. First of all, here on the upper right hand corner, just like in the quest cards, we find its loot or its reward, which is 2 coins and 2 quest points per character in your party. Over here, we see its health, which is 6. It needs to sustain 6 damage before it's defeated. Here, it tells you the value, the minimum value it needs to roll in order to successfully hit its target. So whoever rolls for the Merp-Mellow has to roll at least a combined value of 6. And here it tells us that this is a melee attack, and that as far as damage is concerned, on top of the default damage, which is determined by the lowest die rolled, you're going to add an additional 2 to that, and that's how much damage the Merp-Mellow will deal every time it successfully hits its target. Now, before we actually engage in combat with the Merp Mellow, there are some pre-combat options that players can take. However, if Merp Mellow had the keyword hostile, then we would immediately engage in combat. So we're going to look at our characters here. And Leona Logan here has this taming ability, which we would roll for intelligence, which her intelligence is at 3. And on an encounter with an animal type creature, which this is an animal type, roll intelligence -1 if hostile to tame it and to gain its quest point loot plus 1 bonus quest point. So we would be surrendering the coin loot in this case. We would only be getting the quest point loot, but we avoid combat and potentially sustaining damage for our characters. So it's worth a shot. So this is how a skill test works in this game. First of all, we check the relevant stat or attribute for the character who's making the skill test. In this case, it's Leona Logan. And in this case, we are testing intelligence, which is at 3. Then we roll the 2 dice in our party color, and we add the totals of these dice to her attribute or her stat of 3 intelligence. And we rolled here an 8. So 8 plus 3 equals 11. As long as the roll combined with any other modifiers equals 10 or higher, you successfully completed that skill test. So in this case, we were able to successfully tame the Merp Mellow here. We did not destroy it, so we are not going to get to search the item deck for Merp Jerky. We're also not going to get 2 coins per character in our party because instead we chose to tame it. Instead, what we are going to get is 2 quest points per character in our party. So that's going to be 4 quest points, which puts us tied with the blue party here. And now we are done with the event phase in the game, and we will proceed to the wrap-up phase. First of all, in the wrap-up phase, each party is going to choose to level up each of their characters in one of their respective attributes. So in this case here, I'm going to increase Eudo Nikias's charisma ability because he has this convert ability that's based on his charisma, and currently his charisma is at 2. So we grab one of these level up tokens, and we level it up just by 1, the next highest number. So now his charisma will be 3. And for Evander Windari here, since I don't like his intelligence and strength being so low here, they're each 1, I'm going to choose to increase his strength from 1 to 2. For Leona Logan here, I'm going to actually choose to increase her agility because remember that one of the factors that adds to your party's movement points is the highest agility of the characters in your party, and they're both pretty slow. Leona's at 2 and Grave Stoneheart is at 1. So I'm going to increase her agility to 3 so that they could be able to move across the map a little bit more efficiently. And as far as Grave Stoneheart is concerned, I'm actually going to level up his dexterity here from 3 to 4 because his swing pick, his starting weapon, depends on his dexterity here. Also in the wrap-up phase, we're going to add 1 new ability and 1 new item to the market. So as the game progresses, we're going to have this ever-growing market with more and more options available for the players. Then we pass the turn order marker to the next party clockwise, and they will be the first team to go in the next round. So we will proceed to another round of play, and this time we will begin with the red party. And again, they must make the choice of either going with a market action or a travel action. And in this case, they're going to start to travel, and they're going to try to resolve their starting quest, which is Grace Quest, which again requires them to travel from Crystal City to Piketown, which is right over here. So for travel, again, you have 3 regular movement points, plus the highest agility stat of any character in your party, which now is Leona's 3 right here, plus 3 pathway movements. So we're going to make our move. We're going to do 1, 2, 3 pathway movements here. We're going to do 1, 2 regular movements here. And we stop right here in Port Farnor. And you cannot cross over a body of water unless you have some sort of sea or water ability, like swimming right here or this orca whistle. But if there's a port, then you can pay the cost of that port to travel to the other side of the lake. Now you would pay the coin value printed on the hex on the board, on that port, times the number of characters in your party. So in this case, this is a 1 in Port Farnor. We have 2 members in our party, so we pay 2 coins. However, very important to note for my character here, Stoneheart, he hates sea travel, which means he must pay 1 extra gold to use a sea route, except for a free one, of course. So we're going to pay 2 plus 1, which is 3 coins, which is exactly all that we have. And now we are able to travel to the other side, and that will cost 1 movement point, which is the 3rd remaining regular movement point left for us on this turn. So we're going to cross over here to Piketown, and we still have 3 more moves, because remember, you also have movement points equal to the highest agility stat on any character in your party, which in this case is Leona's 3. But we don't need to do that, because we're going to stop right here in Piketown, and we're going to complete our mission here, our first quest, which is Graves' quest right here, to travel from Crystal City to Piketown. And that's going to give us 2 coins multiplied by the number of characters in our party. So that's 4 coins that we gain plus 4 quest points. And now the red party is done with their turn. Now we will proceed to the blue party's turn. And they're going to try to complete their quest here, Stardust Part 1. And this requires them to travel to the meteorite site, which are the mountains just south of Windar. And then we're going to try to climb that mountain by rolling strength. Because remember, normally you cannot move on mountains. So we are going to take a movement action this turn. We could always use some equipment and abilities, but right now we've got this quest on our site. And we're going to take 3 pathway movements right here. 1, 2, 3. Then we'll take 3 regular movements. 1, 2, 3. And that brings us to the foot of the mountain. And now we are going to test our strength in order to try to accomplish this quest. And when trying to make a skill test for a quest card, or any card in this game for that matter, each member of your party can take 1 attempt at successfully passing that test. However, once that first character successfully passes that skill test, then that counts on the behalf of the entire team. So we're going to roll for strength, and right now, Evander Windari's strength is 2, and Yudo Nakai's strength is 1. So I should have strengthened them earlier. I might regret that. So we're going to roll these 2 dice here and add the modifiers. We're going to start with Evander. He's going to give it a shot first. And he rolled a 4, which added to his modifier is a 6, which we need a 10 to successfully pass a skill test. So Evander has failed his attempt of climbing the mountain, and it tells us here that you may keep rolling, but you take 1 damage each time you fail. I guess we can keep on trying this quest, so I'm going to deal 1 damage to Evander, and now Yudo is going to try, and he's really going to need a high number because his strength is 1. And that's a 4, so he's going to take 1 damage, and because 4 plus his strength of 1 is just 5, so he takes 1 damage, and it says we can keep rolling, but we take a damage each time we do. So I'm going to give it 1 more try with Evander here, and he rolled a 5, which added to his strength of 2 is a 7, which is still not enough, so he'll take another damage. So he's taking 2 damage out of his life of 8. And I'm going to stop it right here. It's obvious to me that we do not have the strength right now to climb that mountain. So I'm hoping to level up Evander maybe. And in the next round, hopefully be able to successfully climb that. So we are done with the action phase, and now we are proceeding to the event phase. And again, if any party was located at a campsite, they would flip over that campsite token and see whether they draw a creature encounter or a quest card. However, no party is located on a campsite, so we're going to start here with the red party because they're the starting player this turn, and we're going to roll a single die to determine what kind of encounter they will have. And they rolled a 5, so they're going to have an encounter with a creature yet again. So we draw the top card of the deck here, and it is a muscle spider, and it is hostile, and it attacks on encounter. This is an animal type of creature, so we could attempt to make Leona Logan's taming ability. However, we're we're going to simply try to defeat this in a battle. It says here, if it hits you, you may not move positions for the rest of combat, and I'll explain that shortly. It has a life of 7. It needs a minimum roll of 6 to strike damage, and it inflicts 2 additional damage plus the default of the lowest die rolled. Our loot here would be 2 coins per member of the party and 2 quest points per member of the party. So this is what combat actually looks like in this game. So first of all, we have this combat board, which represents the spatial element to the actual combat which this game involves. So we already drew this muscle spider creature here, and because it is fighting a party of 2 characters, we're going to draw the top card from the creature deck, but we're going to keep it face down, and it's going to represent a second muscle spider which is going to fight against the human opponents. Now when you're playing this game, another player from another party is going to control the actions and the dice rolling of the creature that you're fighting against. So let's take a look at this combat board here. First of all, there are 2 opposing sides. If there was multiple parties involved in this combat, you would use the reverse side of this board here. And here we have 3 different sections as far as the battle is concerned. We have the front line, the support, and we have the airborne. So we take these 2 characters here and we choose where we want to put them in the battlefield. So first of all, we have Grave here, and Grave here has a swing pick, and that is a melee attack. And if you have a character in the support position, then that character cannot use their melee weapon because melee involves proximity to your enemy. So because of that, we're gonna have to put Grave in the front line. We cannot put him airborne because he does not have a flying ability. Leona here has a bow as her weapon, and it does ranged attack. Because of that, she can actually stay in the support position. And the advantages of the support position is that it's the safest among the 3 positions as far as being vulnerable to the attacks of your enemies. So another player from the other party is going to control the decisions and the dice rolling from the muscle spider here, and they're going to choose to put both of the muscle spiders here in the front line because they both deal melee damage, and this is the best way to get the most out of them. Now, normally in a combat encounter with creatures, the heroes always have initiative. However, when the creature is hostile, then the creatures have initiative. So the creature is going to attack first. We're going to use these green dice here to represent the attacks of the muscle spider here. First of all, they need to choose a target, and because they deal melee damage, they cannot target Leona, so they must target Grave right here. So we're going to roll these dice here. And they rolled an 8, so they will deal damage. And the way damage works is, first of all, we look at the lowest die rolled, which is this 3. And then we add this damage modifier here of 2. So that's 5. And we inflict 5 damage on Grave over here, who has a life of 8. So he is very much in danger. But wait, I forgot. Grave here has this samurai armor, which means he actually loses 3 less damage to all attacks. So let's take 3 out. He only sustained 2 damage. So it's a good thing we got that samurai armor earlier on. Now the second creature is also going to make an attack before the heroes get an opportunity to do their attacking. So we're going to roll this die here again. And it rolled a 4, which is not going to be enough. So that is a miss. And this creature here failed to strike Grave. So now the heroes are going to do their attacking, and I'm going to choose to go with Grave first. And I'm going to attack this muscle spider represented by this face down card here first in the front line. I can't attack him because it's melee, and Grave has a melee weapon. He has a single pickaxe. He rolls dexterity for this attack. And his damage equals the low dice plus 1 at strength 4. So eventually when I get his strength higher, this will be more valuable. So we're going to roll these 2 dice right here. And I rolled a 9 plus the modifier of 4 for my dexterity is 13. More than enough to successfully do this. We're going to look at the lowest dice rolled, which is a 4. And we're going to deal 4 damage to this muscle spider right here. And again, the muscle spider has a life of 7, so they're not quite dead just yet. Now we're going to attack with Leona here, who's in the support position and can attack because she has a bow, a ranged weapon. And we're going to choose the same target here, that face down character right here. And we're going to roll for dexterity. She rolls for dexterity to make her attacks. We need at least a 10 or higher. And we got 11, which on its own is more than enough along with our modifier. So successfully, she's going to deal the lowest amount, the lowest die, which is a 5. And 5 damage should be more than enough to kill this character because their life is 7. Now that we're done with the first attack phase of the combat sequence, we actually proceed to the response phase. And in the response phase, you have a couple of options you can do. You can use a response ability if any of your characters have one of those. You can use a perishable item or swap out your equipable items. You can move or shift to a different position in combat if it's to your convenience. For example, Grave here is a little vulnerable and he's already sustained some damage, so you might want to move him to the support. However, remember that the muscle spider here says that if it hits you, you may not move positions for the rest of the combat, and Grave has been hit, so he will not be able to move. Finally, the last thing you can do on your response phase is you can choose to flee. Discretion is the better part of valor. And in order to flee, you flee as an individual character and you would make an agility test. And if you succeed, then you're able to remove your character from combat. And we're not going to change any positions here. Again, Grave is not allowed to make any changes. And we're more than fine with Leona here in the support position, ready to attack with her ranged weapon. Now, if for any reason Grave is eliminated from the combat and there is no character in the front line, then the support becomes the front line. So you can't just indefinitely stay safe here. You need to keep other characters in your party alive and well and protecting you in that front line. Now, the player controlling the muscle spider isn't going to make any changes because moving this guy to the support position is in vain because this character has already sustained 9 damage and their health is 7 and there is no way of healing them. So we will complete the response phase and we will move to the cleanup phase. We're going to check for damage and remove any entities, any creatures or characters who have received damage greater than or equal to their health, and these characters and creatures are going to be eliminated from the combat. Now that we're done with the cleanup phase, we're going to proceed to another round of combat. Combat continues until there's 1 or fewer parties left in the actual combat. Whether that be because all the characters in another party were knocked out, or because all of the characters in a party chose to flee. So again, the hostile creatures go first in combat. They're going to choose their target, which must be Grave because it's a melee attack. They're going to roll their dice right here, and that's a 7, which is enough to deal damage. So we're going to look at the lowest die here, which is a 1. We're going to add their damage modifier of 2, and that is 3. However, remember that Grave has this samurai armor, which we paid an arm and a leg for. And it says here that we're going to subtract 3 damage to all attacks. So that was 3. So we're going to subtract all 3 from there, and Grave is not going to sustain any damage on this attack. And now there are no other creatures to attack from that side, so now the heroes will have their turn in the attack phase. And we're going to choose to first go with Grave right here, and we're going to roll Dexterity to attack with his pickaxe here. And he rolled an 8, which is added to his modifier, the Dexterity of 4, which is 12. That's higher than 10, so we will deal damage. We'll deal damage equal to the lowest die, which is 4. So 4 damage will be dealt to this character here. And then we're going to attack with Leona here, and we're also going to choose this muscle spider right here. And Leona's going to roll for Dexterity. She's attacking with her bow. And that's a 9. Combined with her modifier of 3, that's a 12. We're going to look at the lowest die here, which is a 4. So again, we will deal 4 damage. And now we're done with the attack phase. Again, we move on to the response phase. Nobody here is going to change position. Nobody here is going to re-equip. And no one here is going to flee. And that goes for the other side as well, because what's going to happen is we'll proceed to the cleanup phase. And we are done because this guy has sustained damage equal to or higher than his health. And now we will collect the loot, which is 2 coins multiplied by the amount of characters in the party. So that's 4 coins. And we're going to get 2 quest points, again multiplied by the amount of characters in the party. So that's 4 more quest points. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we are done with the event phase for this turn. And we will proceed to the wrap-up phase, which again involves the leveling up of characters in one particular attribute. So we are going to choose to increase Grave's strength over here from 3 to a 4. That way he can deal out more damage when he successfully hits a target. We're also going to choose to increase Leona's dexterity here from 3 to 4 to increase her probability of being successful in attack. As far as these players are concerned, we desperately need to attempt to increase their strengths. So we're going to increase Evander's strength from 2 to 3. And we're going to give Yudo here, we're going to increase his strength from 1 to 2. We're going to add one more ability and one more item to the marketplace. And we'll pass the turn order marker to the next player clockwise. And this is pretty much what a game of Travelers of Tryphosa plays like. Players will continue to go through the 3 different phases of each round until one party has successfully gathered a combination of 8 quests and or creature cards in their victory stack. This will trigger the final round. After the final round, all parties will partake in a battle royale, a grand combat winner takes all. And the winner of the battle royale will be awarded 3 quest points per member of their party. Finally, all parties will be rewarded 1 point for every 4 coins remaining in their supply. After we tally up the points, the party with the most quest points is the winner of the game. If for whatever reason there is a tie, then the winner of the battle royale is the winner. Now let's hear my final thoughts on this game.
So what are my final thoughts on Travelers of Tryphosa? First of all, I like to say that this is not a game for everybody. This is a fantasy-themed adventure, almost dungeon crawl style game. And if you do not gravitate towards those type of games, then this game will probably not be an exception. However, I do tend to enjoy games like this, so take my opinion with a grain of salt. First of all, the very obvious, this game reminds me of the room-bound system in lots of ways. And I'm a huge fan of the room-bound system. First of all, with the map and the different terrain types and how a player has to maneuver around them. This is a little bit more deterministic. It's not luck-based. In room-bound, you have to roll dice and you're kind of subject to the fate of the dice in order to see what you can do and how you can move. And sometimes you can be very frustrated because your plans don't turn out the way you want them to because you might not be able to get to your destination. However, in this game, for the most part, you should be able to get to where you want to get to. And there are ways of manipulating it by increasing your parties and your characters' agility stats. That's always going to add an additional movement point to you in future turns. You have to be very crafty in this game with how you travel because you cannot go past mountains for the most part. You also need to be careful how you go around the bodies of water. You need bridges to cross rivers, and you need to manipulate the ports in order to get from one side of a lake or one side of a sea to another side of the sea. You need to have money in order to be able to do that as well because you have to pay for your entire party actually. Also, you have to be on the lookout for those seafaring abilities that help you travel through bodies of water more efficiently. So I really do like the traveling action in this game. I like the fact that lots of the quests in this game revolve around the traveling, and a lot of them it's about getting from point A to point B. And sometimes you have to actually do something in point B, maybe resolve a skill test or what have you. But for the most part, it's managing, knowing that spatial intelligence and awareness of saying, well, this quest requires me to get all the way to the other side of the board, but this quest and this other quest, they're pretty close together. So you know what? Maybe I'm better off, or we're better off as a party, going to these 2 quests first and see if we have time to go to the faraway one later on. Now, as far as the resolution for skill tests, I am really a big fan. It's a very clean system that this game uses. Very straightforward. You roll 2d6s, you add those totals up, you add the modifier of whatever relevant stat you are taking the test in, and any other additional modifiers you might have in your items or abilities or what have you. And that's the final number. And if that number equals to or exceeds 10, then you are successful in that skill test. Now, although this game plays from 2 to 6 players and 2 to 3 teams or parties, I would say that this game shines with 6 players playing 3 teams because it increases the level of interaction. First of all, you retain that team aspect, right? That idea of collaborating with another person in order to make your decisions and come to an agreement as to what you guys want to do as a party. But also, the fact that there's 3 parties enhances the interaction among the parties because one of the coolest things that this game has is the trading feature, which you guys did not see in the playthrough. Because if you are in the same hex as another party, Or if you and another party are both in a town, it doesn't have to be the same town. If you're both in a town at the same time, then you can engage in trading. You can trade items and abilities and even quests and gold. So that again enhances the interaction of the players, because for the most part, you're kind of sitting and waiting for your turn to come around again because you're not really involved in the other player's turn. And I feel that at a two-party game, when there's just two parties involved, quite often you're not going to see trading taking place, right? Trading always works best when there's 3 or more parties involved. I'm really a big fan of the combat in this game and the spatial element that this involves. I love the fact that the battlefield is divided into 3 positions. You have your front line, you have your support, and you have your airborne, and you need very particular characters to occupy that airborne position, and you need to factor in your melee characters and your range characters and who's best positioned where, and knowing when to maneuver and move them around during the response phase, because certain characters are vulnerable and have sustained damage and you want to protect them. Factoring all these things really add to the strategic aspect of this game. It's very, very methodical as you're thinking this through. And the leveling up system is very straightforward. You are gonna level up your characters from round to round. Each round they're gonna level up in 1 attribute. You're gonna increase it by 1. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, nothing out of this world. You don't need to be successful at anything in order to count on leveling up. So again, pretty neat, and you know that eventually your characters are going to get very, very powerful. Also, this game includes a really cool consolation prize for when you fail at a skill test that I forgot to implement during the playthrough. I apologize for that. And it's this tenacity token that players gain whenever their character fails at a skill test. And these tenacity tokens allow you on future turns to modify your skill test rolls. They allow you to re-roll your dice if you're not satisfied with them. And they even allow you to level up your character. So they're very beneficial to you. And again, are a great consolation prize for when you're frustrated because you failed a skill test. At least you know that you're gaining these tenacity tokens. And they kind of keep the game balanced and progressing, moving forward. You don't feel stuck. You feel like you're always progressing, because even though you failed at these skill tests, these tenacity tokens are going to increase. They're going to mitigate some dice rolling in the future, and they're going to increase your chances of being successful then. If I had to pick a weakness for this game, I would say it is the fact that it's not a game for everybody. It plays from 1 to 3 hours, and I think to get the best out of this game, it has to be somewhere in the middle, somewhere around the 2-hour point, because I feel that if you play it too quickly, it just feels like a race, and you don't get to experience the world of Tryphosa. You don't get to experience the characters and the lore and the backstories behind all the different quests and the different cities that you're traveling to. If players are just racing to be the first team to get 8 quests, then again, it just robs it from that experience. It cheats you from the opportunity of exploring the market and finding out all these different abilities and all these different items and what they can do to your characters and how they can improve you and make you more efficient in future turns. But if you play with the right group, in the right pace and the right spirit, exploring this world, exploring this universe, getting to know it and immersing yourself in it, it can be a very rich and enjoyable experience. So if you like fantasy and you like these type of games, I would absolutely endorse and recommend Travelers of Tryphosa for you. Check in the description down below for a link to its Kickstarter campaign. Also check in the description down below for a link to our Patreon account and see how you can support this channel. This is Harry saying take care everybody, stay safe, stay healthy, and have fun gaming. Bye-bye.